Balcom. We have regrets from Candace Stevens. She can't make it this afternoon. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes of September 17, 2024. What is your wish? Moved to the second. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. First item on the agenda is BLN 2824-008, Gurma Valia Singh Development Agreement Application. Debbie, you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, the applicant's Gurmahar Walia Singh. The property is located on Highway 2 in Belnan, and it's just located in behind the Withrose Farm Market there. The size of the subject property is 1.12 hectares, and the proposal is to enter into a development agreement to permit an automobile dealer and an automobile vehicle repair and maintenance use on lands that are zoned rural use RU. The rural use zone permits highway commercial uses by development agreement, and all the surrounding property is also zoned rural use. This is a satellite image showing the subject property outlined here in red. We have the Withrose Farm Market just along Highway 214 here. This is the new daycare that has been recently established. And then on the property to the north, a building permit has just been issued for this property for a commercial use that's permitted as of right. This is the site plan for the subject property, and this just shows Highway 214. This is Withrose. This is the driveway right here that goes up, and it's going to be a shared commercial driveway, and the applicant and the property owner of the one where the commercial building permit has been just issued, they're going to share a commercial driveway access, and they have that permit from Nova Scotia Public Works currently. And this is just a close-up of the actual subject property. So they have a proposed parking lot for vehicle display and sales, a sales office with a washroom. They have a proposed garage. And then a single-unit dwelling is also planned by the applicant to be constructed at a future date, right there. And single-unit dwellings are permitted as of right in the rural use zone. Policy analysis. The Planning and Development Department will view the proposed application based on the applicable policies contained in the municipal planning strategy. A detailed table of the evaluative criteria enabling policies and corresponding comments from staff and reviewing agencies will be attached to the final report. And as I mentioned, Nova Scotia Public Works has already been in discussion with the applicant, and a commercial driveway permit has been provided or issued. Citizen engagement. So planning staff will comply with the citizen engagement policies of the municipal planning strategy when processing this application. An advertisement outlining the proposal and indicating that it is under review by staff will be placed in the Chronicle Herald. A letter and questionnaire will be mailed to all property owners within 300 meters of the subject property asking for comments on the proposed application. And this is just a flow chart to show the process. And we're here at the very beginning, initial consideration. We'll do the questionnaires to property owners within 300 meters of the site, comments requested from internal departments and external agencies, staff evaluation, a public hearing, and then council can either approve or refuse the application. And the recommendation is that initial consideration be given and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. Wishing to speak, Councillor Hebb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will move the recommended motion. Planning Advisory Committee recommends the council give initial consideration to enter into a development agreement for an automobile dealership, vehicle repair, maintenance, and location of property identified as PID 45431129, Highway 214, Belnan, to enable a public hearing and to authorize staff to schedule a public hearing.
Second.
It's moved in second. Thank you, Councillor. Nobody wishing to speak?
Question.
Questions being called, we'll go to the vote. And the votes pass unanimously. Thank you, Debbie, for that report. Next item on the agenda is PLN 24-009, Tots Academy Development Agreement Amendment Application. Debbie, you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, As you mentioned, the applicant is Tots Academy Child Care Society, and the property in question is at 480 Highway 2 in Enfield, and it's just out here, lined out here in red. Subject size of the property is 0.26 hectares, and the proposal is to unsubstantially amend an existing development agreement in accordance with Part 7 of an existing development agreement. And just the surrounding uses include apartment buildings, municipally owned playground. Across the street is mixed-use center zone commercial development. And then there's site plan approval for more apartment buildings just to the south here. So the purpose of the application is to increase the number of parking stalls by creating a new parking area in the front yard of the child care facility. So right now, there's kind of grass over to the side. That grass will be removed, and in this gray area, and more parking would be added there. So they figure about 5 to 6 new parking stalls will be located here. And the mixed-use center zone allows parking to be located in the front yard. The new parking stalls are required to accommodate additional staff to support an increase of 46 spots in the child care facility, and no other changes have been proposed that differ from the original development agreement. Policy analysis. The Planning and Development Department has reviewed this application based on the applicable sections of the Municipal Government Act, the current development agreement, and the policies contained in the municipal planning strategy. Based on this review, it has been concluded that this application be identified as an unsubstantial development agreement amendment, and items not considered substantial do not require a public hearing. The existing development agreement required 15 parking stalls as per the site plan, and as per the existing development agreement with the municipality, any amendment, whether substantive or not, must be approved by both parties in writing. And the recommendation is that the requested unsubstantial amendment be approved. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. Wishing to speak, Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just looking to approve the recommended motion.
Second.
So moved in second on the motion. Nobody else wishing to speak? Where's your wish?
Question.
Questions being called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Thank you, Debbie. Next item on the agenda, I'm not sure of the pronunciation, is PLN 24-003. Leanne, can you help me out on that?
It's Talal Waib.
Talal Wub?
Waib.
Wub. Designation of rezoning. Leanne, you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a new application received again from Talal Waib. And the subject properties are located on Highway 2. They are outlined in red here. There is also a portion of the neighboring property that will be included as well. The zoning is currently the 2-dwelling unit residential zone with some moderate risk floodplain to the rear of the properties, and it is designated established residential neighborhood as per the generalized future land use map. And the properties are located within the South Corridor and Commercial Growth Management Area. So the applicant is requesting to change the zone from the 2-dwelling unit residential zone to the multiple unit R3 zone, and from the established residential neighborhood designation to the medium density residential designation, the MR designation, in order to permit the development of 2 large multiplex dwellings. Right now, both properties are vacant. So again, the applicant is intending to construct 2 24-unit residential buildings. The land use bylaw requires a minimum frontage of 30 meters per lot and a minimum lot area of 3,000 square meters per a large multiplex development. So right now, the 2 properties do not meet the required frontage or lot area size in order to enable large multiplexes. Lot 2 currently has 28.95 meters of road frontage and is 2,328 square meters in area. And Lot 3 is 28.95 meters of frontage and just over 2,700 square meters in area. So the applicant does have an agreement right now with the neighboring property owner, as I mentioned, to acquire land that will enable an increase in the property size in order to meet the minimum lot requirements for large multiplexes. This is a preliminary concept plan that was provided by the applicant that just essentially shows where the two buildings are proposed to be located. So this is Highway 2 here and Barney's Brook along the rear. For policy analysis, so staff will refer to our municipal planning strategy policies associated with the MR designation, as well as our general policies that we have related to amending the MPS and the land use bylaw. Policy IM 11 states that council shall only consider private applications where said amendments are in the best interest of the municipality. Policy IM 13 enables an application for map amendments of the MPS when a request for a rezoning amendment that is not consistent with the strategy's maps but is consistent with the intent of the strategy. And staff will also consider the policies IM 14 through IM 26, which detail the evaluation criteria for amendments to the planning strategy and land use bylaw. Citizen engagement, so there will be an advertisement in an upcoming edition of the Chronicle Herald, just indicating that the proposal is under review by staff. And as this is a request for an MPS amendment, a public information meeting is required. So a letter will be mailed to all property owners within 300 meters indicating the date and time of that public information meeting if authorized. And at that time, residents will have an opportunity to ask questions to staff on the application. So staff will continue to review the proposal to change the subject properties to the R3 zone and the MR designation using all of our applicable policies in the planning strategy. And this application would not be appealable to the Nova Scotia Utility Review Board. And in terms of the timeline, we are just at the initial stage with this initial report, and the next step would be to have a public information meeting and send out questionnaires. So the recommendation today is for authorization of a public information meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Leanne. First up to speak, Councillor Garden-Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. So I'm seeing where they do not have the required road frontage or the required footage for the proposed development. So, but they're looking for approval for this, and that's in lieu of the fact that they are going to acquire more property?
Through you, Mr. Chair, they have an agreement right now to purchase land from the neighboring property, so that piece would be included with this rezoning. So they would
So-
have to do a subdivision consolidation plan.
So if
At
it's
some point, too.
rezoned, then they would still have to acquire that property in order to,
Correct, yes. They right now don't meet the requirements of a large multiplex. So in order for them to have that, they have to have the land.
okay, I'm just processing in my head. So if we rezone this, then the rezoning is done. And if they do potentially acquire that, then they can go ahead. If they don't acquire it, then the zoning is done and that it doesn't go ahead. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up, Councillor Tingley.
Question through the chair to staff. This property is designated at the back moderate risk to flooding. What happened with this property in July 2023 with respect to flooding?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure the specifics of this particular property in terms of the level of flooding that occurred.
Would Jesse know?
Go
There we
ahead,
go.
Just
Through you, Mr. Chair. So this property is near Paley Brook, which did have some washout of sidewalk in the area. I am not aware of visuals that showcased this property in particular. I do know there's a slight increase in grade from the stream where the road crosses it up to where this is, because we've done water main repairs in the house in between. So it is slightly higher, but I don't know the extent of the height of the water from that event specifically. So I don't have an answer, which is the answer, unfortunately.
Thank you, Counselor. Next up, Counselor Rhino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I have concerns around, they say that, you know, they have an agreement to buy. And will that agreement be finalized? Will they have this land before, if we started down this process, or before council making a decision?
Do you have to have the land before this is completed? Or?
Through you, Mr. Chair, they wouldn't have to. You can split zone a property, so you could zone the portion that they intend to acquire to this new zone. But nobody would be able to get a building permit on that lot or this one for the R3 use until it was consolidated, because it wouldn't meet the zone requirements.
I still have problems, you know, trying to deal with this. You know, we're trying to get enough to get this, and then they're wanting us to rezone it and things like that. I have a problem with that, and right now, I can't support with some kind of consolidation, and there's enough there land there in order to change that to zoning. I can't support that.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Counselor. Next up to speak, Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Just looking for a bit of clarification. This application is to zone those two properties. And in order to meet the frontage requirements in that, there's a part of another property that's going to be involved. But this application is not asking to rezone that part of the other property?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it is. So the motion is for the two PIDs and a portion of the neighboring property.
Okay. Because I just was kind of trying to see it on the map, but thank you.
Is that all, Warden?
Yeah.
Thank you, Warden. Next up, Counselor Perry.
Thank you. I see what's going on here, and I think it's some good due diligence, because if we don't rezone it, this person's not wasting money buying property they can't use. I'm going to move and authorize staff to schedule a public information meeting to consider a proposal to change the designation of zone PID 45089-356, PID 4589349, and a portion of PID 45089-455 from established residential neighborhood designation to medium residential neighborhood designation, and rezone from 2-dwelling unit residential to multiple unit residential. I so move.
It's moved in second. Nobody else wishing to speak. What is your wish? Questions being called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed 9-1. With Councilor Rhino voting nay. Thank you, Leanne. Next item on the agenda is the extension of the Housing Working Group term. And John Woodford, you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so back in November 2023, Council approved the formation of a housing working group, and the group, I think their first meeting was in March or April earlier this year. By the time we had it assembled. And that there are 9 members, 3 councillors, 2 members representing the East Hants Development Community, 2 members representing the nonprofit housing community, 1 member representing the Chamber of Commerce, and 1 public member at large. And they've been working away since that first meeting. We took August off, but that's typical around here. And the terms of reference indicate that the membership will run through October 2024, but does state that if the working group is required to meet beyond that date, council may appoint or reappoint members as deemed necessary. And we did include a copy of our work plan for the committee as part of the report, just to show you some of the items that are remaining to be discussed. They include homelessness, what position the municipality should take with respect to provincial and federal responsibility and programs, incentives, energy poverty, and non-market housing. Following that, the committee will need to look at the final draft document before it gets sent to PAC and council. So we think the committee will probably need to work through January, maybe February, and early next year anyway. So the recommendation is to approve the extension of the Housing Working Group term to enable the completion of the work plan for the housing strategy. And you'll see the motion there, it doesn't have a fixed date. It's really, the intention is to allow the group to finish whenever that is. There's an alternative listed here, which would be to actually set a date for the completion, but that's a recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, John. Up to speak, Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Yeah, I would suggest there could be a second alternative motion, which would simply be not to extend the terms of reference of this committee and allow PAC to finish the items remaining, which I still continue to believe would be far more efficient. So if the motion is made, I don't think I'll be supporting it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Nobody else left to speak? Councillor Hebb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will move the motion. Planning Advisory Committee recommends to council that council approve the extension of the term for the Housing Working Group to enable the completion of the work plan for the housing strategy.
Moved in second.
Question.
Questions being called, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed 9-1 with Warden Rolston voting nay. Thank you, John. Last item on the agenda is lot grading and drainage. Further discussion. Debbie, you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're just going to continue on with our discussion around lot grading and drainage for unserviced areas from our September Planning Advisory Committee meeting. I'm not going to go through the whole report. I'll just state that as per the jurisdictional scan done last month and presented last month, how municipalities address lot grading and drainage for unserviced lots varies throughout all the municipalities that we looked at, and there was no consistent approach to it. And we did provide some options at that time, varying from making no changes to the lot grading and drainage bylaw to making lot grading and drainage based on the size of the lot at 2.5 acres, or having number 3, the lot grading and drainage requirements based on the size of a lot and setbacks from the property line, or number 4, just looking at the setbacks from the property line, or number 5, making lot grading and drainage plans applicable to all properties within the municipality of East Hants. And that's where we left off.
Thank you, Debbie. Start discussion. Warden Rolston.
Well, this is pretty quick turnover. When we put this off to future meetings, I wasn't anticipating discussing it here, but just, I don't know how deeply we'll get back into it today, but I do see in a couple of the jurisdictional scans that there are, for example, the township of Oro Medonte in Ontario, in the township of Tiny, Ontario, are the two that leap out to me. And the city of Kawartha Lakes is kind of interesting too. But in both the first two that I mentioned, it does give some authority to the chief building official. And initially I thought, well, I don't know, that might put liability if something went wrong back on to the building inspectors, but I'm not sure. So I guess I would just like some comments on whether having some type of requirement that would allow the chief building official to use some discretion on what might or might not be required, for the simple reason that there are lots in the rural area that certainly they're large, they're flat, they have good drainage. It would simply be an added expense for no reason, but then there are lots that doesn't apply to. So just some comments, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know in our jurisdiction if that would be where to leave the discretion. It might be the development officer, but if you want us to explore that, I think we would want to go back and look at the implications, and I think we'd also have to have some rules around where that discretion could be used instead of just having it carte blanche. So if that's an option the committee wants us to pursue, we certainly can look at it a little bit further to leave some discretion. But again, I would want to kind of flesh that out a little bit.
And I'm not saying that I think that's the way to go. I don't know enough about it yet. But, and you know, you might well come back and say, well, that shifts a lot of liability onto the municipality to do that. I don't know, but I'd certainly be interested in, you know, having a little bit of research done on it and report back.
Thank you, Warden. To the director, is that doable?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I think it would be good to have a motion to direct us back to do something, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Rhino.
Well, I tend to agree with the warden. I think it bodes for more further investigation, because like the warden has said, there's lots out there that to do this would cost an extra cost for no reason. Councilor Perry has said that there are circumstances where one might be warranted, and to paint everybody with the same brush of paying so much more for this plan, I think is a little bit unfair. This way, you know, no matter what this study would show, who would be responsible for it, I do think that is probably one way that would suit probably both sides that are sitting on both sides of this issue, right? So instead of, like I said, just painting everybody with the same brush and here you go at an extra cost. So it's worth exploring, let me put it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Perry.
In agreement with Councilor Rhino and the warden, I believe this is worth exploring, and I also do believe in that exploration, like, we're going to need to flush out some clear criteria, because we need to enable our development officer to have a clear set of rules that they know what they can do and what they can't do. So this way here, all the onus isn't upon them. We need to provide them with the guidelines that are required, and then trust their judgment, because that's the one thing that if we're going to put this responsibility onto a member of our staff, when they make a call, we have to make sure we support them. And the clear criteria would do that. It would be from council that this is why they did it, and here's the criteria for it. And I have no doubt that that'll be flushed out in the coming, possible coming staff report as a motion by the warden. The biggest thing for me is looking at this jurisdictional scan, you know, it kind of goes in all 5 of the motions that were there, right? The first 2, it doesn't matter, everywhere and anywhere, it happens, right? And if you look at the city of Summerside, I would say the city of Summerside is way, way smaller than what we have here, and they require it everywhere. And then there's a lot of flat land there too. I'm not too familiar with the townships in Ontario and their size, but I do believe, like the warden said, I wasn't expecting to have this back so soon. But I think what's being proposed would be a good first step in our next discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Warden Rolston.
Yes, I would move that staff do some further research for a future report outlining what it could look like to have a system where the development officer would have some leeway in determining when a lot grading and drainage plan might be required in the rural areas.
It's been moved in second.
Does that do it?
Thank you.
Unserviced areas.
Thank you, Warden. It's been moved in second. Nobody else left to speak. What's your wish? Questions being called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Thank you, Debbie and John. That concludes the items on the Planning Advisory Committee. Looking for a motion for adjournment. Moved in second, all in favor? Says we're scheduled for a break, but being that it's early, go right into. Thank you, Sam. Enjoy your afternoon.
Let me know when we're ready to go into council.
You're online. We're still online.
We're still online.
Well, you need to move to adjourn committee.
We did.
Yes, we did.
We did adjourn committee. And
You need to start a new one for council.
so,
All right, folks, we will call this meeting of Council for Policy and in-camera items to order. On our agenda today, we have one issue, which is a land issue, which is required to be in camera. I do not see Amy here, so Adam is going to take that. So I would be looking for a motion to go in camera.
so moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion is carried. Leanne will let us know when we're. Okay, I would report that we met in camera to discuss a land issue. There are no motions coming forward out of that meeting. That concludes the business on our agenda this afternoon, so I would be looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Counselor Hebb.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Mitchell. All those in favor?